Okay. Okay, so what you guys are looking at right now is the world's largest cargo aircraft. It is actually a commercial aircraft that is operated by a Russian freight company, and it is a very big plane. Okay, so in the complex world, or the complex network between shippers, airports, air carriers, and customers, there are three basic types of operation. Okay, I mean, there are air cargo carriers where you get the whole plane and it flies from the origin to your destination. Then you can move cargo in the belly, actually, of commercial airplanes, and then use their network. Or you can move cargo through commercial parcel carriers, which have their own planes and sometimes even their own airports. Weights are a little bit confusing when it comes to operating an air cargo type of plane. I mean, you get a UPS letter, and if it fits in the UPS letter envelope, you're going to pay a certain price. If you fit it into a certain box, you're going to pay a certain price. When you start to get into trouble is when all of a sudden you start to have lots of different shapes of things that you are trying to ship. So, as a result, what happens is that if you want to ship things that are big and bulky, and even though the fact that they are nice and light, it can still be very expensive for you to ship something. So, oftentimes, people that are responsible for shipping things air, like if you get some sort of an upgraded service for an e commerce order and it's shipping air, I will tell you, they're going to try and oftentimes put it in as small a box as possible because the bigger the volume of the box, the more they're going to actually end up paying. Okay, so let's see. So here are a couple things to definitely be thinking of. But I mean, basically, there are all sorts of things that impact how much things cost. And in terms of airplanes, it is obviously the equipment. Okay. The equipment is very expensive. Airplanes, you want to probably, if you're going to be flying cargo, you probably want to have a 747. That is a very large Boeing aircraft. And it is something that you probably would end up paying maybe about 110,000, or pardon me, $110 million for used, and more than likely probably about $150 million for a brand spanking new one. The only problem with that is if you want a used one, I'll tell you right now, there's not a single one available in the world that is available. Additionally, there is a 2-year wait on new 747. So a lot of times you're kind of stuck with what you've got. And large companies that dominate the air freight business are the types of things that are oftentimes, yeah, I mean, those are the ones that might get some price breaks, but all in all, it's not a very cheap endeavor to do. So it's expensive to buy these darn things. They're expensive to maintain because anything that you send up into the air, whether it's got a bunch of passengers on it, you want to make sure it is safe. Okay, some of you guys might remember the movie Castaway, where there was this guy that he was in an airplane crash. He unfortunately had to spend about 10 years sitting on a deserted island because his plane crashed and everybody else that was on the plane died. Okay, so you want to make sure that your plane is in working order because you don't want to have an accident or lose something that costs possibly $150 million just like that. But probably the biggest cost for people operating these airplanes is fuel. Okay. I mean, any of you with cars, or you hear people griping about the cost of filling up a tank of gas, you will learn that gas is not expensive. Now, to make things even better for these companies that operate airplanes, is the fact that these airplanes take very expensive fuel for those very large engines that keep them up in the air. They take aviation fuel, which probably costs about 4 times as much as a regular gallon of gas. So it's definitely a tough business to be in. If fuel prices are high, you're in trouble. If you want to buy an airplane, they're expensive. You got to maintain these things. And just like an old car, a lot of times takes more money to maintain, and you have to pay extra money for older parts. I'll tell you that that's the same way it is for airplanes. Okay. A lot of times you are going to find that older airplanes are oftentimes, I mean, they've got a life generally around 40 or so years, but the problem is if you're trying to get a whole lot out of your airplane, that just means you're going to be running it all the more, and you're going to have to end up doing more maintenance, and you're going to have to be doing more fuel. So you want to make sure whenever that airplane is up in the air that it is working for you. Okay. And working as efficiently as possible. We're going to take a look here in some of the coming days at how well these air freight companies and these package delivery companies are at maximizing the cube on these very large aircraft. Okay. So, just a couple things to be thinking of. And actually, there's another thing. I talked about fuel being very expensive. I guess I should also mention the fact that a lot of times airplane operators will purchase fuel in advance. Okay, they don't know what this is. An interesting plane. This is a variation of the 747 where they've put like this huge dome thing on top of it. It's called the Beluga. Anyway, oh, actually, that's not the Boeing; it's the Airbus version. But anyway, that's a cargo plane right there. So, one of the things that they do is they buy fuel in advance. They buy fuel in advance at a certain price, and then they cross their fingers that the price of fuel won't drop. Then all of a sudden, maybe they do the same thing, and all of a sudden the price rises, and then they look like stars. Okay, you're hedging is what they call that type of a transaction, and you're hoping that the price that you're paying is less than what it will be in the future. Okay, sometimes it works out for the airline or the airplane operating companies in the parcel delivery world. However, sometimes it doesn't work out for them. Okay. Last but not least, what is another thing that drives up costs for all this stuff? I mean, you've got obviously there's all sorts of regulations. I mean, anytime you're talking about stuff with an airplane, you're going to be under the watchful eye of the Transportation Safety Administration out there at the airport. But additionally, I mean, weather is a huge killer for airplane and parcel delivery airplane operator profits. I mean, unfortunately, oftentimes they've got to have the planes continuing to run, but then at the same time, you've got, I mean, weather is just slowing down. You've got customers complaining. They've paid a premium to put stuff in the air, and then all of a sudden, it is something that hasn't worked out too terribly well. So the next time they come and ship with you, they're going to ask for a price break. Okay. So just a couple of things to be thinking about that, because it is not easy operating these airlines, or airplanes, whether it be an airliner or one of these cargo planes that we're talking about today. Okay.